Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Now, I have historically not been a huge fan of Final Fantasy, and I've tried Final Fantasy Remake before, and I just couldn't get into it. I remember sitting there playing it the very first time, and I just kept having issues with the combat. I got up to the first boss, and I just couldn't beat him. I couldn't wrap my brain around the combat at the time. It's like an action-based combat where you're slashing, spamming square to build up action bars basically so that you can use abilities. So that kind of broke my brain for a little bit. It took me like 3 tries to actually get into this game. The first 2 times I just couldn't do it. So I said, you know what, I'm going to give it one more shot. And it finally clicked. Now, my history with Final Fantasy has been pretty small. I went and played Final Fantasy 16, and I liked that. I don't really, looking back on it now, I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it that much because playing through this for the first time, it kind of blew me away. Now, I've never played the original Final Fantasy VII, so Remake is new to me, and I know I'm kind of bastardizing it by skipping the original game and I'm missing some things, but this is one of the best games I have ever played. Now, there are some criticisms that you could say, like, oh my gosh, the cutscenes are way too long, but for me, playing this game from beginning to end, I was totally locked in. I loved the story. I loved what they were doing. And it's almost like you could see between the lines and see the old video game hiding beneath it all. And, they really kind of hit it home with me because halfway through, I ended up going on a little trip. And I figured, you know what, I have to switch. It can download Final Fantasy VII. So I'm going to do that. I downloaded Final Fantasy VII and I played through a good chunk of what ended up being in Remake, and it's just kind of amazing, playing through it, the crazy circumstance in which everything happens, it just blew me away. And there's a short little period of the game, like kind of midway through, where it slows down for a couple chapters, but really the game was awesome. The cutscenes were great, and I felt like it had a good balance of like staying serious and having like funny moments where in Final Fantasy 16, when I was playing through it, like I skipped a lot of the side quests, and the main story was pretty focused, pretty serious. There wasn't a lot of comedy, so playing this, I felt like they had a better balance where it's like you're playing through, you're these eco-terrorists, you're fighting up against a giant electric company, and there's a reason for why you're doing that. They're destroying the planet. Just, however you want to look at it, it was a good story. I really enjoyed it, and the cutscenes were good, and when they would come on, they were long, but they would hold my attention, and I felt like it was a good loop of watching a cutscene which would set up the next segment that I would play, and I would be excited to play that, and the combat was fun and rewarding and engaging. And, when I first started the game, it seemed very shallow. Like playing through it, it's like you have very strict corridors. There's not a lot of branching paths, and it had me thinking a lot about Pokemon, because Pokemon was the same way, where you would have a route. In the later games, they kind of like cut back on the routes, and your options were less and less. And you could kind of see this as an expansion of that, where it's like, yes, your traditional JRPG is like a open world. You can explore and go through caves and dungeons, and this, it kind of scales back. So like maybe if you go left instead of right, you'll find a treasure chest. If you go right, you'll progress the story, and it just kind of keeps you thinking. And as the game goes on, it opens up more and more and more, and that kind of ties into the story too. Since everything was so restricted, they were able to make it look so beautiful. Now, I played this on 2 different versions. I started with the PS4 version. If any of you guys have PS4 or PS5, it's included over on PlayStation Plus, so you can get access to it and play it. And then they have the Integrate patch. So I played through about half of the game on the PS4 version, and then I switched over to the PS5 version once I realized that there was an upgrade for it. And oh my god, it took a great looking game and made it look way better. I was totally blown away by this game, and if you haven't played it, you really should give it a chance. I can't say enough good things about it. I was thoroughly engaged from beginning to end. I felt like the combat was deep. There was a lot of different trees. Like you could upgrade your weapons, you could upgrade your materia, you could link materia. Like, Garrett had pointed something out to me later on in the game. I was on the very last boss, and I didn't even know that you could link elemental materia to your melee attacks. So that's something I totally missed. I never got the materia to combine it, but you know, with this game, the way I see it is it's really just like your traditional JRPG, but cut back, and the parts that you're seeing are so refined and such high quality. And that was my whole view on this game from beginning to end. Top notch, high quality, highly produced. Every minute was just great. And, you know, I went through and mostly did the mainline story. I did some of the side quests here and there, but I loved it. I cannot say enough good things about it. Now, there are a couple things I'd like to say about the story. And this is the part where I want to issue a little spoiler warning. So if you have any kind of interest in this game and you want to go into it totally blind, maybe click off of the video now. Nothing I say is going to be too crazy, but it does kind of impact the story a little bit. So yeah, this is your warning. So like I said earlier, I did have a chance to kind of go back and play some of the original Final Fantasy VII, and I got to about the part where you get Red 13. I started climbing some of the stairs. I'm towards the top, but I haven't, you know, if you fight the president in that game, I haven't done that yet. So I'm kind of right there, and the way that this story goes, the whispers are trying to block you. Like every time you come up to a point in the story where you could change something that differed from the original game, these whispers got in the way and they would block you. And that kind of matches up with the actual game too, because the game is more restricted. And at the end of this game, you end up fighting Sephiroth and you actually defeat him and you dispel all of the whispers, and the story changes from that point on, which kind of ties into Rebirth because, you know, from what I've played of Rebirth, it kind of lets go of the shackles. It lets you explore because the whispers aren't there anymore to stop you or hinder your progress. So I don't know. I'm very interested. I don't know how much of this was in the original game with Cloud and Sephiroth and creation and reaching the edge of creation and whatever kind of fantasy stuff happened at the end of this game, but it totally takes like a hard left at one point where suddenly you're trying to escape Shinra and then you see Sephiroth and it turns into this big giant battle where there's trains flying through the sky and massive rubble and a giant titan in the sky, and Sephiroth is fighting you out in the middle of space. So it definitely gets a little crazy right at the end, and I don't know how much of that was from the original game or if this is something they're doing just to have an excuse to have the next two games in the series, but I'm totally in on Final Fantasy VII at this point. I'm working through Rebirth right now as we speak, and after I finish that, I do plan on going back and playing the original Final Fantasy VII, and I want to go and watch the movie, but at this point I'm already in on Rebirth, so I'm just going to continue on and see what happens. And God, Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's kind of a trick. You know, they're not really remaking it. It's remaking the story from the original game. It's telling a new tale. So I don't know. I didn't really see that coming. I thought it was going to be a beat-for-beat remake all the way through, and this was just going to be totally drawn out into 3 games. And who knows? Maybe they're still going to do that, but I can't say enough good things about it, and if you have a PS4 or PS5, you should definitely give this game a shot. It was totally worth my time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is one of the best games I've played in a long time, and God, I'll have to think about it. This might be one of my favorite games of all time now. So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments section below. What were your favorite parts of this game? What are you looking forward to with Rebirth? What do you want to see me cover on the channel here with Rebirth? Until next time, I'll see you later. Goodbye. This video is brought to you by your support on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/GrouchyGus94 to help support the channel.